At the beginning of the movie, it shows two US snipers aiming at their target. One of the snipers is named Swagger, the best sniper who never misses a shot. Soon, the convoy of Swagger's target arrives, and he takes the shot. However, without them realizing, an enemy helicopter immediately retaliates, attacking Swagger and his comrade. In the incident, Swagger's companion has to die due to being hit by the helicopter's gunfire. Witnessing this, Swagger gets furious and unleashes all his epic skills to shoot down the enemy helicopter. 3 years have passed, and Swagger has chosen to retire from the military. During this time, Swagger has only been accompanied by his dog, living away from the hustle and bustle. Soon, Swagger receives a visitor, who turns out to be a colonel named Isaac. Here, Isaac explains to Swagger that he needs Swagger's help to protect the president. Swagger's task is only to protect the president from a distance, because in a few days, the president will give a speech in an open area. Isaac is afraid that there might be enemy snipers targeting the president suddenly. So, Swagger's role is to preemptively eliminate the enemy sniper. Swagger asks why he is chosen, considering that the US now has younger and more skilled snipers. Isaac responds that they are all unreliable and not as skilled as Swagger. Hearing this, Swagger asks for time to consider the mission and will inform Isaac the next day. After Isaac leaves, Swagger can only daydream while thinking about the offer from Isaac. And unexpectedly, the next morning, Swagger is seen sharpening his shooting skills again because, as it turns out, Swagger chose to accept Isaac's offer. He then contacts Isaac, saying that he is ready to carry out the mission and will depart for the US that day. Before leaving, Swagger leaves his beloved dog in a pet boarding facility and quickly heads to the US by plane. Upon arrival, Swagger is immediately picked up by Colonel Isaac, and they start scouting the location where the president will give the speech. Swagger is seen finding the best position to protect the president and calculating the most likely position the enemy sniper will take. The next day, the presidential convoy starts arriving at the speech location. Swagger is seen in his position to protect the president. Here, Swagger feels something odd because one of Isaac's police officers inexplicably stays behind him. However, Swagger ignores it and continues to watch over the president. But suddenly, the policeman starts shooting. The corrupt cop also shoots the defense minister, who is right beside the president, killing him. Fortunately, in that incident, Swagger only sustains minor injuries, allowing him to escape. It is then revealed that this was all part of Colonel Isaac's plan to eliminate the defense minister and frame Swagger as the perpetrator. However, Swagger's successful escape makes him panic, and Isaac immediately mobilizes all his men to hunt down Swagger. Back to Swagger, in the midst of his escape, Swagger crosses paths with an FBI agent named Nick Memphis. Nick, who hears the news about Swagger shooting the defense minister, immediately stops Swagger. However, Swagger easily subdues Nick and handcuffs him. Before leaving, Swagger states that he is not the one who shot the defense minister. Swagger then takes off using Nick's car. During the journey, Swagger is once again chased by the police and even the FBI helicopter. Feeling cornered, Swagger throws himself along with the car into the sea, escaping while clinging to a passing boat. The scene then shifts to Nick, who is currently being summoned by his superior. Nick is asked why he let Swagger escape, and he responds that Swagger is incredibly skilled, and he's not 100% convinced that Swagger is the one who shot the defense minister. Upon hearing this, his superior asks Nick to further investigate the Swagger case. On the other side, Swagger is seen heading to a house to hide for a while. The owner of the house is a woman named Sarah, who was the wife of Swagger's fallen comrade, shown at the beginning of the film. Sarah initially rejects Swagger's arrival due to the news of him being a fugitive, but Swagger swears he's not the one who shot the defense minister and promises to tell Sarah the whole story later. Eventually, Sarah believes him and allows Swagger in. That night, Sarah helps treat Swagger's gunshot wound, revealing that she used to be a nurse. The next day, the scene shifts back to Nick, the FBI agent, who is processing the crime scene of the defense minister's shooting. Here, Nick becomes more convinced that Swagger is not the shooter because the bullets found there are different from Swagger's usual ammunition. In addition, Nick learns that the defense minister was halting a case in Africa involving forced land eviction and brutal massacres of an entire village by Russia. This makes Nick suspicious that the shooting is orchestrated by the Russians in collaboration with elements within the US government to eliminate the defense minister. Nick then asks his colleague to bring one of the policemen who was behind Swagger at the time of the shooting. However, the colleague informs Nick that the policeman was found dead last night. Hearing this, Nick becomes more convinced that all these events have been orchestrated to eliminate the defense minister. On the other side, Swagger asks Sarah for help to meet Nick and leaves a message for Nick to invite him to a specific location. Shortly after, Sarah approaches Nick, who is having coffee at a cafe. Here, Sarah immediately informs Nick that Swagger wants to meet him at a certain location, and the details will be sent to Nick's phone. Upon hearing this, Nick agrees and prepares to go to the specified location. However, on the way, Nick is suddenly abducted by several individuals who are Colonel Isaac's subordinates. It turns out that Isaac has learned about Nick's suspicions in the case, so he orders his subordinates to eliminate Nick. Nick is seen being tortured and is about to be executed when suddenly Swagger appears and takes action to save Nick. Swagger then explains that all of this is Colonel Isaac's doing. Isaac deliberately framed Swagger for the death of the defense minister because he was collaborating with the Russians who were colonizing a village in Africa. After that, Swagger takes Nick to visit one of the former senior snipers to gather evidence against all of Isaac's crimes. Upon arrival, it turns out that the senior sniper is elderly, and Nick straightforwardly asks the senior about what he knows regarding Colonel Isaac's crimes. The senior only explains that he knows Isaac has been collaborating with the Russians for the past few years. If Swagger wants accurate information, it's better to go to one of the best Russian snipers frequently hired by Isaac. Unfortunately, the senior doesn't know the whereabouts of the Russian sniper, so it would be better if Swagger seeks information from the FBI, because the senior believes that the FBI surely keeps data about that top Russian sniper. After leaving the senior's house, Nick, who happens to be an FBI agent, immediately contacts his colleague and requests data about the best Russian sniper. As the senior mentioned, the FBI indeed has information about the sniper, including detailed information about the sniper's current address in Virginia. And surely, Nick requests this data from his colleague. After obtaining the information they were looking for, Swagger takes Nick to a place where he can sharpen his shooting skills. It turns out that not only Swagger is training, but Swagger is also teaching Nick how to become a sniper. Swagger does this so that they can protect each other. He knows that to meet the Russian sniper, they have to deal with Isaac's henchmen first, which would be challenging if Swagger had to face them alone. That night, the scene shifts to Sarah at her home. Sarah hears suspicious sounds and immediately checks outside. While inspecting, Sarah is suddenly ambushed from behind, and it turns out to be Isaac's henchmen. Apparently, Isaac has learned that Sarah has been assisting Swagger, so he kidnaps her to lure Swagger into surrendering. The next day, the scene returns to Swagger and Nick, who are now near the house of the Russian sniper. They divide their tasks, with Swagger entering the premises, while Nick serves as the sniper to protect Swagger from a distance. Shortly after, Swagger disables several soldiers guarding the Russian sniper up close, while Nick takes out the rest from a distance. Swagger also doesn't forget to set up some explosive traps as a precaution in case enemy forces suddenly arrive. After successfully eliminating all the guards, Swagger enters and confronts the Russian sniper, who is revealed to be paralyzed. Swagger immediately questions why he chose to collaborate with Isaac and the Russians. The sniper, incapacitated, honestly admits that it's all for money, as they are the only ones willing to pay a hefty sum. For a long time, Isaac and the Russians have been collaborating to seize lands in a remote village in Africa, and the people who resist are mercilessly slaughtered. The U.S. Secretary of Defense planned to address the issue, so Isaac and the Russian colonel had to eliminate the Secretary of Defense. Hence, they came up with the idea of framing Swagger, the retired American sniper. Even though, in reality, the one who shot the Secretary of Defense was the Russian sniper himself, from a not-so-distant range. Unexpectedly, Swagger recorded the entire conversation, providing him with strong evidence to expose Isaac's atrocities. As the Russian sniper expects to be hunted down by Isaac and the Russian colonel, he chooses to end his own life. Meanwhile, Isaac's military forces suddenly arrive, leading to an epic firefight between them and Swagger and Nick. Fortunately, due to the traps set by Swagger earlier, the enemy forces are easily neutralized without significant resistance. The next day, Swagger contacts Isaac. Here, Swagger threatens to expose Isaac's wickedness, since he already has evidence from the recorded conversation with the Russian sniper yesterday. Hearing this, Isaac immediately counters with a threat, stating that if Swagger goes through with it, he won't hesitate to kill Sarah, whom he has kidnapped. Not wanting Sarah to become a victim, Swagger reluctantly strikes a deal with Isaac, exchanging the audio recording for Sarah's safety. However, Swagger insists that Isaac must come along with the Russian colonel, who has been collaborating with him. In the end, Isaac agrees and provides the coordinates for their meeting the next afternoon. The next day, Isaac is seen arriving at the meeting location with Sarah. They meet in snowy mountains quite far from any settlement. Also present is a Russian colonel who has been collaborating with Isaac. Shortly thereafter, someone arrives whom Isaac believes is Swagger. Deviously, Isaac has hidden several snipers in the area and immediately opens fire on the person he thinks is Swagger. However, it turns out not to be Swagger, as Swagger was well aware that Isaac would resort to treachery in this exchange. Swagger himself is still hiding behind the snow and swiftly eliminates all of Isaac's snipers after he spots their position. After that, Swagger shoots the arm of Isaac's aide, who was holding onto Sarah. Swagger then approaches Isaac and demands that he release Sarah. Isaac and the Russian colonel ask for the voice recording to be handed over first, promising that they will not trouble him anymore afterward. Quickly, Swagger sets the voice recording on fire, as he wants to leave promptly. However, when the evidence was burned, Isaac suddenly laughed and said that Swagger would soon be in jail. At the same time, several FBI helicopters arrived on Isaac's orders to arrest Swagger. However, Swagger appeared calm, because he believed the FBI would trust him, especially with Nick on his side. In the end, Swagger was taken into custody, and the FBI agents asked him to explain everything later in court. A few days later, Swagger was seen in court to prove his innocence. Isaac was also present as Swagger's opposing party in the trial. Swagger immediately explained that he was not the one who shot the Secretary of Defense. He proved this by comparing the bullets from his rifle with the ones that hit the Secretary. Then, Swagger revealed that Isaac was the mastermind working with the Russian colonel. Nick, who was present, even provided photographic evidence of the atrocities committed by Isaac and the Russian colonel, massacring villagers in Africa. However, the judge couldn't apprehend Isaac and the Russian colonel because the incident occurred outside the jurisdiction of the United States government. Upon hearing this, Isaac smirked and whispered to Swagger that he would never catch him. After Isaac left, the judge declared Swagger not guilty since there was no evidence proving he had killed the Secretary of Defense. The judge then released Swagger, advising him that if he sought revenge against Isaac, he should do it in his own way. Hearing this, Swagger understood what he needed to do next. A few days later, Isaac, the Russian colonel, and their henchmen were seen celebrating their victory for successfully eliminating the defense minister. They mocked Swagger's attempts to thwart their plans. At the same time, one of Isaac's henchmen suddenly fell from the roof lifeless. It turned out to be Swagger's doing. He was there to wipe them all out. Without mercy, Swagger immediately took out Isaac, the Russian colonel, and their henchmen. After that, Swagger left and blew up the house until it was leveled to the ground. A few minutes later, Swagger went to Sarah, who was waiting for him in the car. Here, Swagger decided to take Sarah with him, and he even planned to live with her, replacing her late husband. Then the movie ends. So, what do you think of this movie? Did you enjoy the recap? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. One like and subscribe is highly appreciated. Share this video to your friends and family too. And that's about it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next videos.